imagine we just build an ecosystem of what we call the future, let's say, digital first remote workforce, make it very easy to connect them with Fortune 500 firms through partners such as you guys, and make it very easy for them to get paid, to have savings. But the most beautiful thing, so they don't have to do what a lot of these Latino families have to do, is they have to leave home for opportunities.
Hello. Welcome everyone to The Remote Advantage, a podcast where we talk about nearshoring, hiring people in LatAm, and everything that has to go around that. I'm Isabella. I'm going to be your host for today. And here we have a really special guest. His name is Pablo Miller. He's the CEO of an incredible, beautiful business called Remoti. And the idea of this episode is basically that you can learn about his story, about how Remoti was born, and how it's changing the way people see hiring in LatAm. So welcome, Pablo.
Hi, Isa. Delighted to be here. And, thank you so much for the invitation.
Amazing. We love to have you here. So the idea is that we start a little bit about you so people know you, how you started, your whole life story, and then go a little bit into the story of Remoti.
No, fantastic. So I think the best way to kind of describe my story is with my name, Pablo Miller, that is like so Spanish and then so English. Actually, the full name is Pablo Alfonso George Adrian Miller. So obviously I'm half English, half Colombian. I lived in England the majority of my life, studied in England. I was very fortunate that, being in England, it allowed me to go to good schools, good universities, network well. And that was always something that kind of stuck in the back of my mind, that it was, why do you have to be in a certain location to have certain opportunities? Why do you have to be in a certain location to meet certain people and network with certain people? And that's kind of where I think my passion and, let's say, why God put me on this earth is how can we connect opportunities that we don't have locally with amazing talent.
Amazing. So you had told me before you have one of your parents is Colombian and then one is from the UK, right?
Correct. Yeah. So my mother's from Armenia, Quindío. For the viewers that don't understand kind of the different cultures within Colombia, Armenia is very much the kind of, let's say, hardworking countryside coffee region. And so, my mum was a family of 8, so very traditional. And then on the other side, on the English side, my grandfather, where I get the George from, he was a professor at Cambridge. He, worked all his life exploring new medicines. And, that was kind of like the beauty of my upbringing. That one minute I'm with a very traditional old school British family. The other minute I'm with this fantastic, passionate, fiery Colombian side. So Christmas was always a good time when we mixed both families together.
I can imagine, and you can see like the difference between the cultures. So let's get into Remoti. So sure. I know this started a couple of years ago. So tell us how it started and now what it has transformed into.
Sure. So when I was at university, I was studying politics and sociology. I never really kind of found my feet at uni. I loved kind of the, seminars. I loved, in-class work, but let's say kind of writing down for the, my essays and my ideas, it was never, easy for me. So at uni, I was always very desperate to kind of find something that I could do business related. And I've always been in the world of kind of connecting. I always loved kind of finding people, introducing them to opportunities. So also at university, it was a time where, let's say, the fintech wave in London has started. And so we saw kind of early fintech firms such as TransferWise, eBri Partners, World First. They were starting to say, look, we've had enough of the traditional bankers. Let's build something awesome online. And I saw a small gap in the market that all these companies needed to hire graduate salespeople. So let's say from my early stages at university, I set up my first business, which was obviously connecting graduates to these early fintechs. had no idea what I was doing. It was all kind of like, let's just get on with it. Let's not plan. I remember sending, terms of business, and instead of, 14-day payments, it was 14 weeks. And so I was like, how am I going to pay people? But one thing that I naturally felt that I was great at, it was like, I finally found my passion. I finally found something that I was good at. And that's where kind of we called the attention of a well-known investor and entrepreneur in the UK called James Kahn. James Kahn set up one of the biggest, let's say, RPO recruitment companies in the world called Alexander Mann Solutions. I think they were sold last year for $500 million. And he allowed me to go and work directly underneath him, to be mentored by him. And then his umbrella of companies called Recruitment Entrepreneur, where they'll kind of work with younger people that had passion and had a, let's say, ambition. And they'll mentor them, and they'll kick off. I did extremely well, but then towards the end, I saw that the market was changing. And let's say these kind of fintech companies, they didn't want traditional headhunters. They didn't want traditional kind of sleazy sales tactics. And that's when I thought I want to build something different. I was very fortunate that I had a mentor, Oliver Paul. He was the former chairman of UBS, and he sits on the board of Korn Ferry in the UK. And so kind of I went to see him. I was 22, 23 at the time. I don't know why he helped me. I think he just thought, this kid has problems. I got to support him. Let's see what we can do. But I said to him, look, I think there's a gap in the market for a really friendly, really nice recruitment company for the fintech space. So he said, all right, build a business plan and let us know. So as I mentioned, my mom is from Armenia, and I'd never really spent any time in Bogota. And so I decided to take a trip down to Bogota. And when I was here, this was almost 10 years ago now, I was blown away by one thing, and that was the caliber of, let's say, this second generation Latinos that maybe studied abroad and come back. But most importantly, the caliber of talent with these big, traditional, boring companies. And there was great digital talent inside. And then number 3, there was a talent of this like amazing, let's say, self-taught engineers. So I thought, something cool's about to happen here. So I called up Oliver Paul and I said, okay, instead of, wiring the seed money to Lloyd's TSB, how about you wire that to Bank Colombia? And that's kind of where we set up our first business. So we started going, and nothing really worked out. We tried to reach out to fintech firms, in Sweden, in the UK, and they're like, why would we work with a supplier in Bogota to help fill positions in Stockholm or in London or Paris? But we just about got by. And obviously my business model was based on hiring great Colombians as recruiters to service, European and US customers. And then the pandemic hit. And we were very fortunate that we had one client that we'd been working with, which was Automatic. They're the guys behind WordPress.com. And they were pioneers of remote work even before the pandemic. And they were just like, oh, you guys are in Colombia, we're hiring remote. Why don't you just send us some Colombian candidates for these kind of mid to senior positions? So we were like, oh, why didn't we think of that? Why didn't we start telling clients, hey, you're hiring remote, why not hire in LatAm? So we got to the market and they were like, the quality is unbelievable. The level of English is unbelievable. The determination for them to improve is unbelievable. But most importantly, is their loyalty was so high. We had such a bubble in Europe and the US of these tech companies receiving so much venture capital money. Senior engineers were just going from job to job, pay rise to pay rise. All of a sudden now, they have the opportunity to work for a wonderful company, work with colleagues from outside that, let's say, necessarily there's not that expertise locally. So there's that personal and, professional development. But the most beautiful thing is that they could stay at home. So that started going. And then clients would be then, but how do we hire these guys? We can't just set up a legal entity in Colombia and Sao Paulo, in Mexico, just to hire these guys. So that's when our payroll business was born. For some of the viewers that don't know that, the EOR business is simply that we hire these folks, but they work full time for our clients under the client's control. In the client's infrastructure, they simply don't need to build that HR and legal layer. And then the last one was, how do we retain these guys? What do they want? How do we, like, make sure that they feel like they're employees of, the client in the US, but they're actually based here? And then a lot of these guys also earning US dollars. How do we pay them? And that's where we started saying, imagine we just build an ecosystem of what we call the future, let's say, digital first remote workforce, make it very easy to connect them with Fortune 500 firms through partners such as you guys, and make it very easy for them to get paid, to have savings. But the most beautiful thing, so they don't have to do what a lot of these Latino families have to do, is they have to leave home for opportunities. So that brought me back to, my youth, when I was always super grateful that my mom left Colombia and went to London, and I was able to go to great schools, be exposed to great mentors and great opportunities and work. We became Remoti, the platform that is end to end and allows you to be able to set up a hub in LatAm in a matter of weeks, and then for this amazing ecosystem to have access to great opportunities.
That's amazing. There's two things that I think are really cool. And the first one is you guys were kind of in the process of hiring remote people before the pandemic hit. How have you seen the actual work? Because I know that's one of the biggest or companies are really scared about that remote work, understanding they're going to be far away. They're not going to have that day-to-day contact. As soon as the pandemic hit, for you, it changed completely. And I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. But how do
Yeah.
you see the work from these talents?
I think it's a great question, and it's also kind of it's a management question, right? What's important for you? How long someone works, or the output? And so, for for our partners that look at output and they have a really good recruitment process, there isn't that issue. But I think this is a good kind of opportunity to kind of explain really what are the type of roles that we fill. So our sweet spot is something called IT shared services. So these are kind of essential business functions that a business needs to keep the business running. So we're talking about kind of implementation roles, integration, cybersecurity, very senior help desk, bug fixing. So it's one of these things, Isabella, that it's like, I'm worried that people won't do their job, but it's almost like it's very obvious if they're not doing their job. And so, because these are not like, oh, can you build a website for me? Freelance jobs. These are jobs that, unfortunately, they're turning off in the US, or they're turning off in India, and they're turning on that business function in LatAm. And because these are essential day-to-day processes, there's no place to hide. And so the client needs to obviously trust that. But most importantly, I think it's and it's testament to my team. The ecosystem is so rich here. And what we're doing is nothing new, being able to work for a foreign tech company, been around for ages. It's just the kind of connectivity and the fact that these guys are not going to be employed for 3 to 6 months. These are long-term positions. And so these guys know that to be able to work with some of these brands that we represent, they've got to do a fantastic job. And an interesting fact that I can give you is that the average tenure for some of our ecosystem partners, it's about 1 year and 8 months. So it gives you an idea that it's a long time.
Yeah.
And if we think about it, if we look at kind of the generation of our parents, they were brought up, go work in your local company, stay there for 40 years,
30 years.
Get your pension. And then what we've been brought up in is, let's go for a job for a year and a half, and then let's move on, let's ask for a pay rise, etc. So I've got guys that have been with certain partners for over 3 years, because they love the conditions, they love the projects they're working on, they love that they're actually part of the functionality of a Fortune 500 company. They're not just doing little things that are insignificant. So they're motivated. And the fact that they're also working with, colleagues that are, they have certain skill sets that maybe locally we don't have here, they're upskilling all the time. And, that's the main thing that I think this digital ecosystem is motivated by. It's the upskilling.
That's one of the things that I find most interesting about Remoti, because with most of the people that I talk to, they tell me, no, hiring from the US to LatAm, it's mostly for startups, like really new. But what we're seeing with you guys is that most of, or if not to say all of your clients are Fortune 500 companies, correct?
Correct.
Which is amazing. So that also means that companies in the US, really big companies, are hiring people in LATAM with, they don't have to pay as much as in the US, but they're getting amazing talent. And the people in LATAM are getting mostly a pay bump, kind of,
Well,
right?
yeah. So I love this topic. It's obviously it's a sensitive one because the elephant in the room is always a lot cheaper in Colombia. It's a lot cheaper in LATAM.
Yeah.
So I have a simple pattern that I follow with all of my clients. Yeah, 100% there is a efficiency here, and the salaries are lower, but because we're not working with startups where they're just hiring one or two, let's say, engineers, and they're just going to work on certain sprints or projects. These are business functions. If I'm now an essential part of a Fortune 500 business function, and I've been there for 2 to 3 years, I've become a bit indispensable. So the client has no choice but to pay them something very similar to what they pay that exact colleague in the US. And
Okay.
I'm starting to see that already. So absolutely, there is a saving in the entry, mid to senior, getting to know you, let's say, transition. But for those people that have actually now been there for a while, have now become an instrumental part of the business, their salaries are not so far from the ones in the US, and that is fantastic news here for us because then there's a
Amazing.
great career path, and then there's great. You're stuck in a big corporate here. You're never really going to get a significant pay increase. You're never going to work with different people. You're never going to learn new things. All of a sudden, I'm based in Chapinero. I'm working with guys in Chicago, New York. These guys have worked for some of the biggest tech companies in the world. I'm learning from them. I'm also improving my English so much. And I'm getting a bump from what I am locally, but I can then have dinner with my abuela and my mum on Sunday. I don't think it's a
That's
bad,
amazing.
a bad compromise.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am driven for the senior people to be paid the same as the US, but I am also, realistic that there is salary arbitrage, and at the beginning, the savings. I sometimes read wild things of 60%, 70%. That's total nonsense. We like to say the saving is around 30 to 40% because we also, part of what we do here at Remoti is that we also consult on benefits and salaries and salary increases. So it's aligned obviously with, let's say, the local market. But even that, because they're paid in US dollars, they make the salary arbitrage between the peso or the local currency and dollars. So naturally, they still doing better as if they were working for a local company. So it's a
Exactly.
win-win.
It's a super win-win. All right. So I want to get into the challenges that you guys have seen since you started remotely. So understanding like the first before the huge pivot and then what you're having today. What are the biggest challenges that you see or the US companies face when hiring in LATAM today?
So it's a pattern now that I see that there's always a champion within the business. There's like, guys, LatAm makes sense, and then there's always resistance. So that person is the one that needs to kind of win over the company. So when we start, everyone always goes, we're going to hire 100 people, we're going to grow very quickly. We purposely say we start very small with a small team so that the people in America have to come to the realization that they're hiring in LatAm. The English is not going to be perfect. The culture is not going to be perfect. The cultural understanding is not going to be perfect. But like everything, with some tweaking and some understanding, it makes sense. By nature, in Latin America, we are Americanized. People here are brought up watching HBO.
Yeah.
You see American cars everywhere, and you have Chipotle and all these American brands, all over here. So it is about a case of getting the champions within the US company to come down and spend time with the team. Now, what does that mean? It's not really about kind of working with them and micromanaging them. It's just understanding and establishing that trust. One of my clients is one of the fastest growing fintechs in the NASDAQ. Um, the CEO, I'll give you an example, their market cap, since we've been working with them, was at 300 million. Last month was 4 billion in less than a year and a half. And the
Wow.
CEO, the majority shareholder, came nearly every month for about a year.
It's a
And he
really
would just
big, important
bet
project inside of their
it.
company.
Absolutely. But most importantly, it was to show the guys in Colombia that they are no different to the guys in the US. It's just a location piece, but they are respected the same, they are treated the same, and they hold equal relevance in the business journey. So once the Colombian team were like, okay, there's that safety that we're not going to just be mistreated, or this is just a project for 3 months, or this is just another startup that will fail because they don't get funding or they don't hit the next milestones. This is a NASDAQ CEO taking time to get to know me, ask me how I am, ask me what challenges I have, with the work I'm doing. And one thing I loved, which, we don't hide about because, we love high quality, we love excellence, was that he demanded for the first initial team a GPA of 4.0. Now,
Okay.
is that discriminating at the beginning? He just wanted to hire the smartest and the best. So let's
Mhm.
give him the smartest and the best because, part of, when you form an infrastructure, Isabella, what works is that you've got to build that very strong layer at the top and then build underneath that. And, that's, now, I had dinner with the SVP people last night. We're off to Los Andes. We're off to all the universities because we're hiring interns, and the interns are going to be learning from the best talent in Colombia. And then most importantly, then the overall Colombia hub is then learning from the best talent in Minneapolis and New York. And they're building one of the fastest growing buy now, pay later firms in America that serves American clients, but the layer underneath them is all in Latin America.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And you've told me many times that one of the competitive advantages that you guys have is that you treat your people and you want them to have the best of the best, to be able to give the best of the best to the companies in the US, which
Totally,
I think
totally.
is amazing. And it's very different to what many other companies are doing, which you call them like let's just like mass hire, not that high levels, which is like the difference, I think, of Remoti today.
Absolutely. Look, we have no time for clients that just want to underpay and build these ludicrous software houses. That's not why we're here. We want our ecosystem to power the listed businesses of the world. Like that is my mission. And, part of my job is that, I just got back from the UK. I was in Mexico City. This is kind of, this is like my dream. It's like why I think it's my purpose. It's that like, everyone knows that Latin America is awesome. It's very scary to take the leap. And, it's like, guys, we're no longer in Chicago. We're no longer in New York. We're in Bogota. It's not an easy boardroom decision. How's the market going to react to this? But what's happening now is that this is not that we're early for the parties. Some of the brands that have been doing this are getting such amazing results. And what I also love about it is it's not just about the efficiency, it's that their teams in the US, they're just doing better because they're working with more diverse colleagues. And they're also learning from the talent down here. And, it helps with their culture, it helps them build unity, it helps them, get rid of any discrimination as well. And then I also think for, let's say, kind of second generation Latinos are in the US, when they tell their families, from that now live in the US that migrated over. I was just speaking to my colleague in Lima or Sao Paulo, Armenia, Quindío, and it's like, what? But you're a company in Minneapolis? Like, it's something that is so beautiful. And
Yeah.
the advantage that we have here is with the war on talent in the US and retention. When you feel that you're actually part of a bigger cause with a diverse, let's say, workforce, and with a board boardroom and senior management team that are just so open to be multicultural, I'm going to think twice before leaving this firm.
Of course. And there's a lot of studies that show that diverse teams were going to help you grow a lot, talking about the businesses. So that is incredible.
And they're
Um,
successful. Why would I want to leave a business that's growing so fast?
exactly.
So my bit, I'm working for a tech company that's like, not being silly with their OPEX, CapEx, and they're growing so quickly. EBITDA's doing well. Shareholders are happy. How many layoffs did we have in the last couple of years? These are companies that are here to stay. They're run properly, and they're winning.
And they're not scared, and people aren't scared that they're going to close or lay off a bunch of people from
Yeah.
in 24 hours. That's amazing. You touched one thing that I want to talk about more, and it's the ecosystem. So you've talked a lot about the ecosystem, how you imagine the remote work ecosystem for these new remote workers in LatAm. Can you tell me more a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think I need to be careful how I phrase this. Traditionally, there was a lot of lawyers, there was a lot of psychologists, graduates, because that was just kind of what you had to study. And I love psychology graduates. I think Remoti, our team is 80% psychology graduates. But let's say now, when I'm looking what I want to study, how do you want to build something? I want to learn, I want to learn a technical skill set which would be relevant, for the next 100 years, and internationally, nationally. And this is why this ecosystem is growing faster than ever. But the most beautiful thing about this, and I don't know how much how many Latinas will be here in the viewing this, is that Latin America is a continent which is driven by your kind of layer in society. So let's take Colombia, for example. You have Estrato 6, which are the very wealthy. Then you have Estrato 1, which are the less able, the less fortunate in society. And what this ecosystem is showing us is that the candidates that are doing really well, they don't need to be from the top. It's actually the candidates that are from the bottom up to medium to, a bit higher up, that are just working really hard, that are working in night school, that somehow can get a computer science degree, which is not necessary, or in the other case, they're self-taught. And let's face it, our clients don't give a damn about your background. They just give a damn about how well you interview. Are you part of the overall mission of the business? So what we love about this ecosystem, this digital ecosystem, is it's something that is breaking these social barriers in Latin America that have been, we've been so constrained by them. And it's an ecosystem which, it's changing the paradigm of work. And also the paradigm of how work is done. You don't need to go and paint 20 masters. You don't need to leave the country. It's a paradigm that I'll stay here, but I'll, get connected to the right firm. I'll then be able to earn in dollars, which will help me change my family's life. It means that then I can afford to do online courses to improve my English. And then I'm also upskilling with the colleagues that I'm working with from the US. And then when they start thinking, okay, now I'm doing well, and I mean, this is where firms like doing, building such amazing products is, but how do I save my money, and how do I invest my money? And do I want my money in local currency, or do I want it in US dollars? And so this is why this ecosystem, and rightly so, they're starting to ask the hard questions about, what's their future with money and investments now that they're doing so well, now that they're growing. What's the next step?
That's amazing. And I think to give that hope, which is right around the corner to a lot of different Latin American people, is something that 2, 3, 4 years ago you could not do because of this remote work and what is happening right now. Touching to that specific comment is, what skills or industries do you think are the ones that are going to grow the most?
So one area that we're seeing a lot of growth is in the restaurant business. Obviously, the restaurant business are in a digitalization phase where how do you now order a hamburger? It's, on your phone or in the touchscreen, right? And so these are all products that need to be built, and it's the kind of next way of digitalization. There's also the robotic element of it that, robots will be coming in to make the burgers. And this is obviously something that is, let's say that technology, it's being built here, with a number of our clients. So yeah, let's talk about kind of the restaurant space, fintech as well. We're very fortunate that Latin America has always had a very strong, let's say, because it's such a big problem to solve, payments. There's a number of good payment companies here. So the alumni of those companies are perfect candidates for payment companies in the US. They need to build teams here from, implementation, integration, designers. That works really well. And another area that we're looking at is the way that media digitalizes as well. When the way that we consume media now is not just on a TV, it's on a tablet, it's on your watch, it's on various devices, and all that technology is being built here in LatAm as well.
Wow, it's super interesting about the restaurant business. I did not know that. But basically all those go back to tech.
Its majority is tech. I would say about 95% tech.
Okay.
Then the other one is kind of service desk, help desks, technical questions about, I'm using this new software. How do I change this? So because the level of English is so high here, and because obviously the technical skills are so high, we're starting to see, again, going back to the shared services model, that, service desk, help desks, it's a great place to put them.
Right. All right. So this podcast is mostly focused on people, basically people inside the companies that are hiring in LatAm, right? Or want to hire in
Sure.
LatAm. But a question mostly for the people in Latin America that want to get a job in the US. What do you think is the biggest barrier that LatAm as like a whole must overcome to position itself basically as a global talent hub? I know today it's growing a lot and the numbers are impressive, but
Yeah.
we believe it's going to keep on growing, right? What do we need to be able, I'm saying we like as a whole, the whole of LATAM, to be able to get to that, like we are the best talent hub in the world.
So I need to be cautious there because obviously it's like massive generalizations.
Yeah.
I think it's that we just need to be more conscientious about the culture of the people we're working with. So someone from Chicago is very different to someone from Wyoming. Someone from New York is very different from someone from El Valle here in Colombia. So if I'm a Latin developer, I need to really do my homework and really kind of be a chameleon for these companies in terms of how they work. And I'm always quite happy to share this example. Being, I grew up in England. If I get an email, I like to reply within 2 hours. If a client emails me, if I have the answer, I reply straight away. And one thing that we had in my team, that it was okay to reply the next day because they just wanted to make sure they gathered all the information and did a very detailed response. And in the UK, it's like, if you 24 hours, like what's going on here? Have you missed it? Am I not important enough for you? And so it would send those connotations. It's not that we're being lazy and it's not that we're not doing our job. It was fine to reply within 24 hours. So, it's these sort of things that like the ecosystem need to understand. The pace that business is done in Europe and the US, the pace of communication is a lot different. We don't leave really things for tomorrow. We got to do them now. We got to get it done now. And so I think when my clients they all address that concern about kind of like the tempo is different. But again, it's kind of getting the guys from the US to spend time with the guys here, showing them what good looks like, and also kind of giving live feedback on the way they should work. And then it just clicks in. So I think for the ecosystem, just to make it very easy, it's improve their English as well. Like for me, English is a must. I just think very foolish, from a young age, if you're a parent, you don't get your children to be bilingual now. I mean, there's so many tools online, and also just doing the basic things such as Netflix with subtitles. Get the English going. Make sure you understand the culture of the people you're working with. And then maintain your Latin American identity and values, because that's what makes you brilliant and unique. I'm not saying to anyone you need to become Americanized or anything, because you're not American, you're Latin American. So hold your identity, but it comes down to great English, and making sure that you blend in very well with the culture, and the different speed of work, and the in some cases the bureaucracy, and the functionalities of these organizations. You adjust to it.
Okay, super. So we're about to finish. And here I want to talk a little bit about the payments part, right? So we're very excited to say that we are about to start working together to help you guys build the ecosystem that you want, including the payments part. But what have you seen like the biggest challenges in the payments part that these people have in LatAm, and the companies, of course, that are paying?
Sure, that there is no room there's no room for error. That it's we say in Spanish, it's pago es sagrado, and it means that, like, if I've done my work, I need to be paid on the day, on time. And I think that everyone is seeing, okay, Latin America's a hot spot, remote work's a hot spot, and then there's just delays, there's errors. So for me, I'm very fortunate that, even, Remoti's a company, it's bootstrapped, but we've never missed a payment date. And then obviously with the people in our ecosystem, they're still our employee, they're contracted to us. We have never missed a payment day. And so I do whatever I can with my management team to ensure that we get our clients to obviously make sure they get paid. But then obviously the partner needs to do their bit. And so for me, it's always like, there is just no excuse for error. The payments just need to be instant. They need to be done. And they need to, for our ecosystem to have access to them, on that day.
We hope, no, we know that we're going to be able to
no pressure.
no pressure, but we're going to be able to fix all that. So, just to finish, we are going to start asking the same question to each person, person that we invite. And basically, here we have two different types of clients, the company and the person. What advice would you give each of the clients, company and person, thinking either to hire or to start hiring in the US, or the people that are thinking about starting to find these vacancies to be able to apply for jobs in the US?
Sure. So let's start off with the US company hiring here. That, again, it's a bit like payments. There's no room for error. So don't come in here hiring for lower entry level jobs. Get in that first layer of your engineering managers, or even, site managers, CTO first. So build the first layer, and then you build underneath that. And that gives you the best chances of success. And I'll add one more piece of advice there is obviously invest in coming down. Invest in getting to know that first layer of people, because ultimately they will be the ones on the ground building out. Because even though it's remote work, doesn't mean these guys don't meet up. It doesn't mean they don't have meetups. It doesn't mean they don't meet up from time to time in co-working spaces. But make sure that layer is nourished and that there is no kind of weak links in it before you start scaling down. And then from the candidate side, I go back to it, just don't change your identity. I mean, be proud and, put the flag up of being Latin American. But number two, make sure that you blend in and you make it very easy for your US colleagues to work with you. And if you do, the majority of these folks do have a green card, don't wait for them to come here. Go and see them. Go and blend with them. Ask them for virtual coffees. Make an effort not to be us and them. Combine that. And then the third one is English, English, English. And fourth one is stay home, build your country, contribute to your country, but power companies in the US. That, for me, I think it's the mission that we should all be striving for if we're involved in this ecosystem.
Totally agree. That's an amazing way to finish the podcast. Thank you so much. Just a little bit, we're going to leave below in either Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, the 2 links for both Remoti if you want to learn more about the company or about me. Pablo, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Isa. Take care. Bye-bye.